there we go. I didn't.
We're good to go.
Now it's way too loud for me. Okay, this mic's on. Your mic's on.
My mic's on.
I didn't check the faders. That's the problem. Okay, talk real close to that one.
Okay, how's that?
That was like almost a whole minute of dead airspace. What community radio at its finest.
Well, that's okay. We'll make up for it.
Yeah, we have the biggest guest that my show GP does. Wait, this is GP does PG. I didn't say that right off the bat. I did, but you didn't pick it up. Yeah. The podcast. I have Mayor Lyn Hall in studio, and I'm quite excited.
Good to be here, Garrett. Thanks very much. Second time around. We were just talking about the fact that you interviewed me, I think back in 2016.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how long ago that was, and that's quite a long time. And it was around the same area. It was still winter.
It was, and it was up in my office, the first actual live interview in my office.
Yeah, it was cool. We just did a short little 15-minute clip. Yeah. I was nervous then, too.
Don't be nervous.
That was back when I was doing the Garrett and Carl show.
That's right.
That was episode 10.
Yeah. Would it help if I said I was nervous?
Yes, it would, actually.
Okay, well, then I'm nervous.
Thanks, man.
But I have been looking forward to this.
Yeah, we've had this planned for quite a while.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I ran into you at an art show.
Yep.
In Studio 2880.
That's right.
Kind of close to where I first met you, too, because I first met you producing the last series of the Meisner radio shows.
Right. Yeah.
He did what year was that election? That was
2014. That was my first, was it 14? That was my first election for mayor, and in 2010 I ran for council. Would it have been back in 2010?
That would have been 4 years. It does every 4 years. So were you a city councilor?
I was a city councilor. I ran in the election in 2010. And then 2011, I guess, 2011.
Okay, and then you ran against Don Zurowski?
Right, in 2014.
That's right, and that was a close one. As far as I remember, looking at the poll numbers, it was neck and neck right to the bitter end.
It was, yeah. It was a good race, and I have a great deal of respect for Don, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, there were times, obviously, when it was a little nerve-wracking, but yeah, it was a good campaign.
That was awesome. I enjoyed that. That was the first time I've ever witnessed politics. I was volunteering at the other radio station, CFIS, and then I got to the privilege, I guess, to produce the Meisner show's last run, sadly, because he passed away several years later. Didn't make it to the next.
I really miss Ben. The Meisner show was a staple here in the community, and Elaine, his wife, did 250 News for a while after Ben passed, but she's now retired and living back east.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's good to hear, actually. I was wondering what happened to 250 News. It kind of seemed like it died with Ben.
Yeah, as I said, it went on for a while. Garrett, Elaine ran the news side of it for quite some. Well,
she was doing it before he passed away.
Absolutely.
She was a partner.
Yeah, she was absolutely. They were partners in that, and I think she just decided that it was time, and that was it. Moved back east, and I think that's where she came from, is back in the Maritimes. So I think she's really enjoying it.
Yeah, 250 News is like a pioneer in the digital world.
It was. It really was. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And it's kind of sad to see that it went and came and gone, but it left the doors open for lots of other things.
Well, it did, and I think there are other news agencies that pick up a little bit of that trademark that 250 News had, and with social media today, that's the way you get your message out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a few digital sources that are surfacing now. They're following. They have like a formula now, though. Mm-hmm. But before the 250 News, they didn't have a formula. They were.
Well, it was interesting with 250 News is that, 250 came out, and Ben started it years ago when he was had the Meisner show, and then continued that when 250 News started. But they really had a couple of different platforms. Certainly Ben's open line show that he did, and then also with their 250 News on their different social media platforms. And more often than not, they were on top of the stories day in and day out. It didn't seem to matter when the story happened; they were on it.
Yeah, exactly. Can't decide just to come in at 9 o'clock. You gotta be there in the moment and make it live
Hmm.
as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Those crucial first moments.
Well, Greg Fry worked with them, and was one of their reporters for years, and then Greg went away to Kamloops, and now he's back as the news manager. I probably don't have that term right, but the news manager over at CKPG.
Oh, replace Dave Barry because he
Yeah,
moved
that's
on
right.
to
Yeah,
Kamloops.
Dave went on to Kamloops, and Greg came back here, and good to have him back in Prince George. I know that he missed it when he left, so it's good to have him back.
That's great, and what a great job
Oh,
to have
yeah,
too.
yeah, perfect. It was very good. So good to see him, and I'm always really pleased when I hear people say, I've been away for a couple of years, but I got to get back to Prince George, and I like to hear that. So I was really pleased when I heard Greg was coming home.
That's awesome. You do. It seemed to be a rare story early on, but as time goes on, it's getting more and more common and building
Yeah,
in comfort.
and I think more people, as I travel around the province, more people are more inquisitive about what's Prince George like, what's going on there, and how come it's so busy, and how come this is happening.
Those silly raps that we had back in the day, they kind of fizzled out now, and people are seeing it for what it is or what it evolved into
Yeah,
to what it is now. Sure, it might have been different in the 80s, but everything was different in the
everything
80s.
was different in the 80s, and we're not an 80s city, and we're in building a university that really helps promote Prince George, UNBC. Whenever we're talking about Prince George, it's one of the selling features that we put out there.
And we get a lot of people that come, and it feels weird that it's almost like a whole different community
Yeah.
just up this hill. And a challenge of that is trying to integrate the university community into just regular community.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of discussions about that between those of us at City Hall and people up here at the university. How do we integrate that? How do we get people to come down to the city and enjoy the amenities, the nightlife, the restaurants that are happening now? And how do we get that feeling up to the university? The Northern Sports Center, the Charles Jago Northern Sports Center is a big attraction as well. So there's a lot of interaction.
The community members are free to use that.
Absolutely, but you're right. It's trying to, as they say, bring the university down the hill and bring the city up the hill. And where's the connection?
I found my way up the hill to volunteer here. I was never a student to begin with, but felt comfortable enough to volunteer my time, and I'm glad I did, and see where I've grown as a person through those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as I said, the post-secondary institutions that we have here, UNBC, CNC, they are vitally important to us when we're out trying to attract people to the city.
That's very focused on the youth.
It is, and but interestingly enough, you take a look at how multicultural our city has become and how diversified it's become over even the last decade. And the mosque is a perfect example where a number of people moved to Prince George that are working at the university or working at the university hospital, working for the college. They're doctors, having their own practice, professors, teachers. They came here because they had an opportunity to attend the mosque, and that was important. And so it's interesting how you take a look at the different demographic and the multiculturalism of the city, and how people will come to Prince George at times for a very specific reason. And I really enjoy that part of the city. It has really changed.
That's something that I've witnessed from afar, that's for sure, but never anything that I but they, at these mosques, I believe they open it up to everybody too, and they feed you too.
They do, and just recently they had a huge open house for the entire city, and they had a number of people come by and visit. But you take a look too at the two Sikh temples that are in Prince George, and we have a large Italian community, we have a large Greek community, a large Chinese community, Filipino community. So it's really changed the makeup of our city, and You take a look at other communities in the province that are similar to our size. If you go Kamloops and Kelowna, Penticton and Nanaimo, we now are really a mirror image of each other in many respects.
And that's a great positive thing.
I think it is. I think that, as a city grows, it grows in many different ways. It just doesn't grow in population. It grows in diversity, grows in the land mass. It expands, and we've seen a lot of that over the last 4 or 5 years.
You could say that like a community is an organism to an extent.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
And what makes it grow are the amenities that you provide. So we've talked about the university, the college, and all of these other things that make a community thrive. But there are things, the recreational opportunities, the opportunity to own a house, the opportunity to get a good job and well-paying jobs. Daycare is a big factor for people. So it really is a real multiplier of single things that you can provide in a community become sort of that bouquet, if you will, of opportunity for folks. So I have talked to people from Vancouver that have decided to come up, and they find Prince George to be a great place to raise a family, lower cost of living. They can own their own home.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Education, the K-12 system. We have private school system. So the opportunities are numerous for folks.
And when they do decide to make that conversion over to Prince George, they become a part of that tapestry too. And
Absolutely, they
exactly.
do. Yeah. And for us, they move to Prince George. They enjoy it. They can send that message to the rest of their family or friends or people that they know who may be interested in making a change. But we're not unlike any other city of our size. I know that places like Kamloops and Kelowna, they're always promoting their community, which they should be.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at making a move, there's a tremendous amount of choice, and you will see us in that same category as Nanaimo, Penticton,
right.
Kelowna. People now see us as an opportunity and a choice.
And that's when advertising things like Move Up Prince George
Exactly.
becomes into the conversation.
Yeah, our economic development office, managed by Melissa Barcelos, has done a great job with Move Up PG. It's all over the country from coast to coast, and it's a message about what we have to offer. And you can ride on transit in any of the cities and see that advertisement. It's just a quick blurb that talks about Prince George, the education, cultural activities, recreation opportunities, and that's really what we want to get, just that minute or two blurb out there, so it catches people and it catches their eye, and they, when they get home at night, perhaps they'll Google Prince George and take a look at what we have to offer.
And that's kind of what I started doing with the short little documentary series GP Does PG.
Yeah.
I did just kind of at a whim, right? I was looking to make my own portfolio at the heart of it, but it kind of evolved into its own thing. And it was kind of like just the lesser known places, the kind of cooler, hip down places.
Yeah.
And then it evolved from there to going to Foodie Friday and then kind of what I was like to do was to make music, right?
Yeah.
And focus on musicians in Prince George. And that's where it's kind of at right now. But
And that arts piece, and we have Theatre Northwest and Miracle Theatre, Studio 2880, and all of the artisans that are in there. That's a big piece of our community as well. And, admittedly, I'm a sports guy. I grew up in playing hockey and a number of other sports when I was a young guy. But for me, the arts community in Prince George is so important. And when I talk about the arts community, it's every form of artistry that you can imagine that I'm talking about. And I have the opportunity to attend a lot of things, Garrett, and I get the chance to open up the dance festival every year, just to say a few words and welcome people to Prince George. And the talented young folks that we have in this community and come from all over the province is just unbelievable.
this is the Garrett Perry Podcast on 88.7 CFUR. We got the mayor, Lyn Hall, talking up Prince George. I heard somebody refer to you as a salesman of Prince George. Would you say that's accurate?
I think that's part of the job. I'm so proud of this city. I've been here 34 years now, and it has been so good to me. It has been so good to my family. My wife is from here. I have twin daughters, as you know, that are graduates of UNBC, played for the Timberwolves here. And when I look back on it, yeah, the time has flown, and I wish that maybe I would say I've only been here 24 years. It would give me 10 more years, 10 younger years, I guess. But it's been fantastic, and so I have no problem whatsoever. And quite honestly, Garrett, I love doing it, and I'll brag about Prince George day in and day out. And yes,
even if it wasn't your job to do so.
Even if it wasn't my job, but I see that part of it is that. And if people say that I'm a salesman for Prince George, perfect, because I will talk about it day in and day out.
I think you were the right choice for mayor both the last two elections. I never got to even see a clip of who ran against you. It almost seemed like a joke kind of run.
Well, I certainly didn't view it that way. Mr. Enns put his name in, Mr. Willie Enns, and I met Mr. Enns on a couple of occasions during the campaign. And he was very matter of fact about a couple of positions he had, very serious about it. So whenever I go into a campaign, it doesn't matter who the candidate is, whether I know them or not. I take them very seriously. We run a serious campaign, and that's just the way I'm built, and that's the way I operate my campaigns.
Yeah, you won that by a landslide. I believe it was 90% of the votes were for you.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of a different story compared to the first time around.
Yeah, the first one was much closer, and I think that was indicative of certainly what Don and I brought to the table. Don is a longtime resident here in Prince George. He sat on council, had a number of roles in the community, was a great volunteer in the community, and so I think that we brought a tremendous amount to the table, and we wanted to let people know what our vision was. We wanted to let people know what we wanted to see Prince George become, and we had some similarities, some differences that you'll find between two candidates all the time. But I really enjoyed the campaign, and I thought we had a great opportunity, both Don and I, to lay out a vision for the city.
Did you see a lot of successes with your vision?
I did. You always take stock. I don't care what job you're in, you take stock, and I do it almost sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, but certainly at the end of every year I look back and think, okay, here's what I wanted to do. And certainly it's not just me, council, our senior administration team, and here are the ideas that we have. And I look back on the first year, 2015 was a fantastic year. Of course, we had the 2015 Canada Winter Games, and I think that was a turning point. And as I look back on that year, Garrett, that was a turning point for our city. I think we were on the national stage, and
That's right.
People took notice.
It was a great opportunity for Prince George as a whole.
And I'll tell you a funny story, just a little thing. In 2014, I had said to my wife that I'm going to run for mayor. What do you think? And we had a long conversation about it. We chatted with the girls about it. And one night, we were up here at UNBC over at the Sports Center. We were headed back home, and we were driving along Tyner Boulevard. And I just sort of, out of the blue, said, you know what, if I become mayor, I want to put lights on Tyner Boulevard. And, driving along, and sure enough, became mayor. And I thought about that drive along Tyner Boulevard. And here we are today. We've got lights on Tyner Boulevard. So every time I drive up here and I see those lights, I think to myself, that was probably one of the first things that I had really mentioned out loud. If I become mayor, I want to have lights on Tyner. And here it is, So maybe not a big deal to some, but it was certainly a big deal for me and for others. So it was good.
That's awesome. Do you get a lot of people's feedback?
Yes.
like from the community?
Yeah, a tremendous amount. You and I were talking a little bit about social media before we came on, and social media is a good platform for people, and not all people are happy with what I do,
Yeah, it's
and
kind of you get
a
all
mix.
kinds of voices.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. That's democracy. I like to talk to people, so quite often if I get an email from somebody, or somebody will send me a message on Facebook or Twitter, quite often I will try to find a phone number and call them. I like to have that kind of interaction, and it's important because I can say probably a lot more in a conversation, and so can the other person, than just quick one-liners here and there on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing is that we have active reporters here in town.
Right.
That interview myself and council on a regular basis.
Weekly, it seems too. Yeah, some of them.
And that's part of the job. You're going to hear back from people, the good, the bad, people who are very happy about what things are happening. Some are very upset, and that's why that conversation for me is important to have.
When you're dealing with the media, a lot of the time they're just looking for snippets. Do you find that they represent yourself?
Yeah, yes, I have found that. So, as an example, Cheryl Jan from CKPG interviews me every Tuesday morning after a Monday council meeting, and we've been doing that now since I became mayor. And Cheryl will sit through the council meeting of the Monday night, and she has some very specific things she wants to talk to me about. And I know that there's not a lot of time, so I need to get to the point very quickly, and that has really helped me. And along with other reporters as well. They don't have a lot of airtime, or they don't have a lot of space, to write out a story, so I get to the point very quickly.
That's right. And have you had the opportunity to sit down and have very many long-form conversations like this?
Not a lot like this. Cheryl and Dave Barry did year-end reviews. The one we did last year with Cheryl, I think December of 2018, just to review the year and what took place. That was I really enjoyed that. It was a different style. We did it in the council chambers, a little bit more relaxed, as
cool.
opposed to the studio.
Right.
It was good. But these kinds of things that you and I are doing, I really enjoy them, and I wish I could do more of them. I think whenever you can sit and talk about things like this, you've got an hour long, you can go through a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy that, because the job is much larger than just, as you say, a snippet of news.
That's right, yeah.
And more often than not, so is the story. Story will take up, lines and lines on a piece of paper, or minutes and minutes on air. It's just not always a quick snippet that you want to provide.
What about the newsprint?
Yep.
Same story?
Yeah, so the newsprint, they have the same access to us. They have a reporter at most of our council meetings, and they'll interview myself or one of the councilors. They will also interview our senior administration team on various things that are going on in the city. So it has a real balance of information from a number of people around our table.
Do you witness a decline in newsprint? Everybody always talks about that.
Yeah, and I don't know, because I don't know what the numbers have been over the years. You hear that.
Well, we've seen it with the demise of the Free Press.
That's right. When the Free Press left a few years ago, absolutely. And interestingly enough, during a campaign, the Free Press wasn't here for the 28 campaign, obviously. Mm-hmm. So that was an avenue that we didn't have as candidates to use to get our message out or to get an advertisement out. So the print, of course, was the Citizen. It's interesting when that happens. And there's a number of communities that don't have printed paper anymore.
Yeah. And
that I think starts to pose a bit of a problem at times. But the Citizen is still here, and I think that newspapers are an important component of that media world. And I'm not a professional in that world, so I don't know how the various medias compete with each other, or how they can compete differently to garner a greater portion of the market. That's not my world, so I don't know.
It's actually just a great thing that the Citizen has lasted so long. And I think it's the very oldest form of.
I think you're right. I think it's one of the older ones here in Prince George, and maybe throughout the province.
I believe it's over. They just had the 100th year anniversary. It's just the same as Prince George had its 100th year anniversary
in 2015.
So it must have been at the very beginning, the very couple years.
So interestingly enough, we just celebrated our 104th birthday on March 6th. And it's hard to believe. Seems like just yesterday we were 100.
Yeah, so, really, 4 years already.
I know.
It just flew by.
Yeah, time doesn't stop.
Yeah, because when the 100-year anniversary came around, I remember Lisa Redpath was always posting pictures of our station manager eating cake.
Oh,
that was the big thing, because there were so many cakes.
Yeah. And speaking of Lisa, over at Studio 2880, Sean Farrell as well is there, and we're really anxious to see them move downtown in the old Bank of Montreal building where the farmers market is today. That'll be good. I talked a little bit about the arts earlier, and for me, it's about getting that arts community downtown. I think it adds another piece of the puzzle to what we're trying to do down there.
That is awesome. I heard a little bit about that. I wasn't sure where exactly it was moving to. Are they going to keep the name 2880?
I don't know. It's such a trademark name. Everybody, you say 2880. Yeah, I know 2880. So I don't know. We'll see what they do.
I think they should keep the name, just personally, but it might be silly because it's not their street number anymore.
But it has... Garrett, it's funny. It has more of a connotation to what the organization is than their address.
Yeah.
And 2880. Everybody knows about it.
Is the farmers market still going to stick around in that?
Yeah, building? I think what'll happen is there will the 2880 and the farmers market will work out sort of the logistics of that area. But we'd originally looked at that building for 2880 to move into, and they weren't quite ready, so the farmers market needed a home. So
it was just a temporary thing.
Yeah,
that farmers market's been moving around the last couple of years, eh?
And it's a big thing for our city to have the two farmers markets there. They do quite well. Good to have them.
Yeah, that's great. It's
interesting what makes up a community. You talk about Studio 2880, you talk about farmers market, and the Northern Hardware, for example.
That's another
going to be 100 years old.
OG, I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Silly to say.
And it's important to have all of these restaurants downtown. And I know I talk a lot about downtown, but it's also important to see what's happening along Highway 16 out towards College Heights and up in the heart, all of the development and new businesses and just new opportunity for people, new restaurants, just something that is it's so important.
This is the Garrett Perry Podcast on 88.7 CFUR. I wanted to get into some specifics like that, but let's start with food.
Sure.
What are some specific restaurants that you would recommend?
Well, that really puts me on the spot, so I should have a list of every restaurant in town. But because I work downtown, quite often I'll get over to the Black Clover, or I'll get over to Batula Burning,
closest ones to City Hall.
Yeah, close to City Hall and Crossroads.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
I've been there.
Cask have done a great job.
They have a great kitchen.
They've done a great job there. Copper Pig has been, the Copper Pig probably started that whole movement, along with Owen Foley and his team. Owen, of course, owns Batula Burning.
And Nancy
O's. And Nancy O's, yeah. So they really started that whole restaurant movement downtown. Great restaurant at the Ramada. There's so many of them. And that's what's so exciting is we didn't have those a while ago. And then, of course, you get up, and Brown's Social House is going to be opening up in a week or so.
Ooh, I saw that. I did not know what that was.
Yeah, I'm going to go tomorrow. Actually,
Opening night.
They're just having a soft opening tomorrow,
soft
so
opening,
I'm going to pop
an
in.
Invitation.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting, and there's just so many. So many of them.
Too many to listen. All right, well,
before you go off food, though, I'll tell you what I do is quite often I'll stop into the one of the Sikh temples and have lunch.
Oh.
And that's sort of been something I do on a Sunday here or there. And if I'm wandering around town, I'll pop in, and I know many of them. I'll pop in and have lunch, and that is a treat. Now, it's not a restaurant, but it's just sort of
something that they're known to do.
It's something that they have no problem. I wander in and have a visit and a cup of tea and a bite to eat, and that's a real treat.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about music? Any specific music that you're listening to these days?
You know, I really move around a bit, so I've got Sirius in my vehicle.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to give away
what stations you listen to.
Well, country.
Country, okay.
Yeah, and there's a couple stations. I'm an old rocker fan, I guess,
mm-hmm.
But there are times, the '70s. I grew up.
Just the great music from a different era.
So today I happen to be listening to Peter Frampton.
Oh,
and the guy's unbelievable, and of course going on
one of the greatest live albums.
Yeah,
Budokan,
going on his last tour. He's got some medical issues, and that's sad to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Billy Idol. He's a guy that was around when I was a young guy.
Love his music too.
Yeah, and it's just so coming from Dawson Creek, it was a lot of country and western.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed the countryside, and it seems to me that it's not so much about the artist, it's about the song. And there are so many that I love to listen to. And on my Sirius station, actually one of them is the 60s.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So I bounced from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and there's a lot in there that are really I really enjoy.
Do you ever get out to listen to local music?
Yeah, I do. And
is there any Prince George notable bands that you could think of?
Well, I tell you, the one that really sticks out is the Gucci's.
The Gucci's.
Do you know?
No, I'm not familiar with this.
It's sister and brother.
Okay.
I really enjoy it.
Like
and so
Buddy Gucci and what's her face?
Yes.
I can't remember her name.
So they're at 2 or 3 different locations throughout the city.
Mm-hmm. One of my very first gpdoespgs was about Buddy Gucci,
mm-hmm.
and that was a great opportunity, and it was cool. I sat through the whole concert. It was awesome. He was playing at Books and Company, and
Books and Company is a great place to go to.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. And, Cafe Voltaire.
Yes, and we've gotten and had the opportunity to participate in some theater productions at Miracle Theater, Theater Northwest. We're going to go to Kinky Boots when it's here.
Ooh,
so there's just that whole mix is pretty fantastic.
Even what Glenn Mickelson can bring to town.
Glenn brings a lot of great acts into town.
I'm particularly excited about Judas Priest.
Yep.
Ever since I started collecting vinyl, my very first vinyl I bought was a Judas Priest.
So are you collecting vinyl now? Do you pick up any of the new vinyl stuff that they're putting out?
Occasionally. Yeah. I don't have as much money as I'd like to, because then I'd just buy out the town, but there's a local artist. I don't know if he's been around in a couple months, but Scott Dunbar.
Mm-hmm.
He produced his own. He got a vinyl produced overseas, actually.
Yeah.
And I got a copy of that. I'm really excited to have that in my collection.
Yeah, good. Yeah, there's
Black Spruce Bog, when they put out their vinyl, that was a big day for me.
Did you get a chance to go to Cold Snap?
Cold Snap. It was well, that was part of the Winter Games. They kind of linked it together, didn't they? Or was that?
Well, sort of, but this year it was just about a month ago.
Oh, I didn't go this year.
They had talent, Garrett, from all across Canada, and it was unbelievably good. They put a great deal into that, and local talent, from Vancouver or right across the country. And I don't know, have you heard of Bim Forbes? Roy Forbes.
Roy Forbes.
Forbes.
He's one of my mom's favorite musicians of all time.
So Roy and I grew up together in Dawson Creek, went to the same high school.
You're blowing my mind now.
Yeah, and so every once in a while I say, "Oh, does anybody know about Bim Forbes?" And Bim has the name Bim has sort of fallen off, and people know him as Roy.
Yeah.
And
I have a couple Bim records in my collection, mostly because of my mom.
Yeah.
I did some research on him. He won an early CBC talent contest, and just recently he went fully blind, sadly.
Yes, he's had eyesight problems ever since he's been in high school, if not before that.
Yeah, apparently he was always blind in one eye, and the other eye was quite some trouble seeing out of it. And then it was just something silly like moving Christmas lights, and he hit himself.
I can't remember how it happened, so let me throw another name at you that I grew up with, Ben Hepner.
Ben Hepner, who's
Do you know
this?
Ben? So Ben grew up in Dawson Creek as well, and he was one of the top-ranked tenors in the world.
Oh, wow.
And just recently retired, but sang in all of the major opera halls throughout the world, and was a real, I think really a big part of his career early on was because of the CBC. But a fantastic singer. So kind of neat growing up with Bim, and then growing up with Ben,
and get to witnessing them.
The two, the two sounds, the music they sang was at opposite ends of the spectrum. But pretty fantastic.
I love Roy Forbes' voice. He has a very unique voice.
Yeah,
that's hard to attain, and. He did a short collection of music with Bill Henderson of Chilliwack.
Yeah.
And who else? They called themselves... Oh, they did... And Sherry Ulrich.
Oh, Sherry Ulrich, yes.
I think they released a couple of CDs together, and they had some great music on them. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
I'm going to... Actually, I've booked Bill Henderson for this podcast.
Oh, good.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
He's going to be... doing it over the internet, but we'll be doing that a little closer to when he comes to town with the I don't know what to call it. It's that like that classic rock festival is what I want to call it. So it is. Last year they had a huge number of classic rock people, like everybody they play on classic rock radio was there, it seems, and still in this time around too.
So you talk about classic rock, you got Glenn Mickelson and PWB are teaming up for another big concert this summer. And
they're sounding like it's going to be an annual thing.
It looks like it. Yeah, and they've got a great lineup. And so
Chilliwack's my favorite.
Yeah.
Just I have some personal stories because back when they played here 3-4 years, no, it must be like 6 years ago now. That's when I was just talking to somebody in the audience who found out about the concert through the community radio station. And that was the first time I ever heard about community radio, and it kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
And from there, I just kind of built an obsession until I showed up one day.
Well, there's some great bands out there that everybody thought sort of disappeared, retired, and they were done, but starting to resurrect themselves. And you talk, Randy Bachman, for example, and Burton Cummings, and those guys. They were involved with some fantastic bands, and here they are today. They're still doing
around
things today, and
just the music that they created, though, was kind of like the anthem of our nation, too, to a point.
It's funny because I'll hear a song by one of those artists that I would listen to in the the 80s, 90s, and they'll play some of that today, and somebody say, "Oh, that's a great new tune." And it's not so new. Some of that stuff. Give away my age here, but about 30 or 35 years old. But that's the test of time, and if you get that kind of longevity, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part. I heard it's because of the Canadian laws, like the CRTC or
Yeah,
whatever, mandating Canadian content on radio, created these
yeah,
legends in Canada at least. But then the real test is if they're famous outside of
hmm
Canada too, right? Because there's not so many laws. It's just the content at that
yeah,
point.
yeah. And we've got such a talent pool here in Prince George, so it's pretty exciting.
Oh, finish off the segment. I
Sure.
wanted to know where you got your haircut.
Where I get my haircut, my haircut, I get my uh, get my haircut at from Page, and the barber shop is in the old McGill Center. So in behind the Esso station and the McDonald's on Demano Boulevard.
Okay,
Ring a bell?
not at all. I've never
Yeah.
even know about this place.
And when I was a young guy, got my hair cut. My uncle was a barber,
Oh, so he
and
was.
I would always want my hair to be long, and it was. Those were the days when you just automatically had long hair.
Because of the Beatles and stuff
Yeah, I
influenced
think
the
just
culture.
more. Yeah, I guess so. But it's just this is the way it was.
Yeah,
And every time I went to him for a haircut, he
just a
made sure
trim.
it was shorter than what I wanted.
Oh no.
I think my mom would phone him and say, "Your nephew's coming in for a haircut. You better trim it up." So, yeah,
Do you find that you... people have like a certain affection to their barber?
yes, I
You-
think you're right.
Yeah, it's
I-
like a
Absolutely.
personal thing, you know. I don't know how
It-
else to describe it.
And when I'm sitting in the barber shop, and there's three of us there, and there might be three barbers, and two barbers come available, 99% of the time we'll all say, "Oh no, that's okay. We're waiting." I don't know what it is. So it's yeah. I guess you have your favorite restaurant, you have your favorite singer, your favorite hockey team,
Your favorite haircut?
and your favorite barber.
Yeah, my barber is Mrs. B. She operates Mrs. B's down on, is it George Street? No, it's right before George Street.
Well, when I first came to town, I my uncle had a barber, and so he was quick to tell me that that's where I should go, and I went there until she retired, which happened.
And then your life's thrown upside down. Where
Then you
the heck
just don't know what to do. You drive around town, you're lost, Garrett. You don't know what to do.
the long hair. It's like, what am I gonna do?
Everything's coming to an end. Got to find a barber.
That's great. So I guess the only other thing I have written down, as I just like, where do you see Prince George in blank years? I couldn't come up with the number.
Well,
How do you see Prince George growing, I guess?
I think it's going to continue to grow. I think that there are still some tremendous times ahead from a development perspective. I think we're seeing a real growth in the central and northern part of the province. So that means we're going to see businesses look to Prince George to develop here. That means that jobs will be available. And for us, we have some work to do that isn't work that you always see, like our below ground infrastructure. We need to take care of that because that in itself allows longevity of a community. And so there's a number of things like that we need to take care of. But I just see the city growing. I would hope that within the next 10 or 12 years we see a increase in the population where we've increased now. I saw some numbers not long ago that were upwards of 78,000 people. So looking forward to the next census to kind of confirm that. But I get the sense that as I drive around the city, it's just busy. Lots of traffic, lots of people, lots of things going on. And I want to continue to have major events here in the city every year, whether that be on the arts and culture side or the sports side. I think that's important for a community to have. It really, I think, bolsters our pride and lets the country know what we're all about. So that's important for me. Seniors housing is an important factor. Affordable housing across the spectrum, actually, that's big for me. And it's I see us continuing to prosper. There's no question there's going to be bumps in the road. There always is. But I feel pretty confident about this city, and I really think we've hit our stride. And when I hear from communities like Kelowna and Kamloops, and they themselves say, boy, has your city ever changed? You are where we were about a decade ago, and you'll find that, you know, you're going to start to morph into a little bigger city. Amenities that you've always wanted will show up. And that's good for me to hear. That's what I want to hear.
That's great. What are some of the amenities that you've always wanted to see in Prince George?
Well, you know, beyond what we've talked about tonight, beyond the recreational opportunities and that, I think for me it's about the shopping opportunities and those things that are there. So you talk about Home Depot and Lowe's, those larger stores that you see in bigger municipalities. Those are important to have. The mom and pop stores are important to have. I talked about the Northern Homesteader Meats, those kinds of stores that have been around for a long time. That's what I was used to growing up in Dawson Creek.
Some of my favorites is my woolen store that I go to. It's just a small little woolen store that Jeannie operates.
Yep. And those stores, Garrett, are vitally important to us. And I heard the other day, I was on Kathy Travers' show. I'm sure you know Kathy on CFIS, and she was talking about Winners and HomeSense and those kinds of things, Pier 1 and Lululemon. All of those stores I had the opportunity to contact early on when I came into the position. And it would be nice to have that flavor of store in our community. Whether they come or not, I don't know. But I just wanted to put it out there. If you're interested, here we are. And but there's a fine line, because people will say to me, I like the way Prince George is.
Yeah.
I really like it. I like it. And I get that too. I like the way Prince George is. But for me, I think there's a responsibility to see what kind of growth we can have here, what kind of growth we can have to increase our tax base, what kind of growth we can have to give amenities to people that maybe we haven't had for a number of years. And I see the growth at the airport and up here at the university and the college and all over the community. And that's important for us. Very, very important.
Sorry, my camera died.
But also, you know, want to be absolutely certain that we don't lose what Prince George is. And I don't think we will. You know, we're a community that is full of spirit and lots of volunteer things going on. We step to the plate when other communities are in trouble. I want us to be known as a hub city. I want people to know that if they have an issue and you know they're a group in Vanderhoof or the municipality in Quesnel, if there's something that we can help out with, I want them to pick up the phone.
What are some of the big events coming to Prince George in the short term?
There's Studio 2880 putting on a big event this year, the 2020 World Women's Curling Championships, BC Summer Games. I'd love to have the Special Olympics Summer or Winter Games here. We've got a number of things happening in the arts community that go on yearly. There's currently a large provincial BC Ringette tournament going on here in Prince George. Large provincial soccer championships here this summer in all age groups. The town is absolutely busy. It seems every day, but particularly kind of this time of year and then on into the summer with various sporting and arts and cultural events that are taking place. Provincial dance recitals that go on here. That's probably one of the biggest surprises I've had in my job, Garrett, is what goes on in this community day in and day out and how busy it is. So organizations will come to Prince George and have an AGM, and that AGM may only be 30 or 40 people. And then a month or two later, there'll be a larger organization like the Natural Resource Forum where we have 1,100 delegates here. So that surprised me. It surprised me to see how busy the city is with those smaller events up to the larger ones, and that's been going on now. You know, I see it every day since I became mayor.
This is the Garrett Perry podcast on 88.7 CFUR. Yeah, I guess we got just a few minutes left.
So let me, if I could, just give you a little idea what's going on around the city. And I know we've talked a lot about the city, but we went through a number of things that we realized we really needed to have. And one of them, of course, is the Park House condo development downtown, residential in the Heart area, which has really taken off. I'd like to see a seniors housing complex in the Heart. We've seen apartments built along O'Grady. We've seen sort of the maturing of a lot of neighborhoods in our community. We're seeing now the opportunity for a student housing project, which is something that we desperately need and desperately wanted to have, and in the downtown area. We felt that that was a piece that was needed to rebuild that whole area. Want to see the arts and cultural organizations in downtown Prince George. Seniors activity centers are hugely important to me. And there's just so many things like that where the city has really taken off. And I'm quite proud to see it happen. And the other thing that's happened to our city is as a result of an unfortunate circumstance, which was the 2017 and 18 wildfires, is that as a result of that, we've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people step up.
Yeah, a community.
Give up their homes and give up their time and all those kinds of things to help people out. And, you know, we had about 13,000 people within a 1-year period, Garrett, come to Prince George because they were looking for help. And that's what I meant when I said earlier, I want people to look to us and know that we'll step up and help them out. It's important. We're the largest city north of Kamloops in the central and northern part of the province. And we have a responsibility and a role to play when it comes to helping out our fellow communities around the area.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like those wildfires are going to subside. It seems like 2 in a row doesn't make me feel good about the future.
No, and we are viewing it as something that has a greater probability of happening every year, and we prepare for it now. It's part of our annual preparation within
just
our
like,
operation.
Just like the snowfall, right?
Exactly.
Snow clearing.
We know it's going to snow. We know it's going to rain. We know we're going to have some flooding. We know that this is going to happen. And
we know it's going to get smoky and burny,
yep.
Fire.
And Garrett, if we're not prepared, then we get caught behind the 8 ball and we can't help these individuals out.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be able to do that. I think that's part of our responsibility as being the largest city in the north. And I always am careful about saying the largest city in the north. As you know, you look at a map and we're smack dab in the center of the province.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. When I was in Sault Ste. Marie, people were saying we were in northern Ontario.
Yeah.
And I was looking on the map and we're like more south than every western province.
Yeah.
It was silly.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just the way things work.
Yeah. That's interesting.
We don't get the big communities like we have until we go fairly south. So I think it is a fair statement saying that we are the largest community in the north.
Yeah, it's so 6 or 7 hours from here. It's Kamloops and then into Kelowna. And
yeah, and there's a few bigger communities, but they're not
the same size as us. Of course, Williams Lake and Quesnel, and you go out to Vanderhoof and Smithers and Terrace, Prince Rupert.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to be able to, you know, I think the word has gotten out there, and those communities certainly understand that we're here for them.
That's good. And a lot of people with big hearts in Prince George.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And in 2018 with the wildfires, we had a tremendous amount of people here from along Highway 16. A number of First Nations communities were evacuated and they came to Prince George.
Yeah,
and
it was quite interesting to see like the little tent cities that kind of popped up with the emergencies, and it was good to see that they didn't burn. That's for sure. That's
and lots of assistance from Carrier Sakani, from the Native Friendship Center. Everybody just stepped up to the plate, and I had the chance of being interviewed a lot with both wildfire situations, and the questions were about why do you think people step up? Is that what this community is made of? And I said, yes, that's the fiber of this community, the fabric of what we're all about.
Yeah, somebody I was just overhearing or listening to a podcast or something, and they're saying that the heroes don't really show themselves until the situation kind of creates itself for the heroes to show who they really are, right? Because before then they're just people.
Yeah, they drive in and First thing they say is, where can I help? Away we go. And so I know you're running out of time here, but the thing that I wanted to just mention as well is there's a number of things that are going on in the city now, and we know that we talked a lot about all of the good things that go on in the city, and but we have challenges. I talked about roads, I talked about infrastructure, and we have a lot of things that are on our plate to be able to make this city tick.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those can be challenging, but that's no different than any other city in Canada, and you work through them. And it's a lot of fun at times. It's a great job.
Spokesperson of Prince George.
Salesperson,
yeah.
Salesperson of Prince George.
This is your second term that you've just started, so you're going to be around for at least 3 more years, 3.5.
3 years. So the election was in October. So I guess 3 years, 8 months.
Big question is, are you going to be running again?
Yeah, I'd like to.
It's just see how things go. And
and for me, every decision to run in an election included my wife and I and my daughters to have that conversation.
And it's not that painful of a position, and I'm like, you're busy.
Oh, you're absolutely busy, but it's a fantastic job. I love it, and there are challenges every day. Every day is different. You think you have a certain day planned out, and it can change in a heartbeat. And I think that's what's so exciting for me. And I've had the opportunity to meet some fantastic people in our community, meet people from around the province, around the country. But it is a great job, and I'd like to have one more election. And but again, as I said, that depends on a conversation with my family. And people say, well, that every politician says that, but it's true. It's true for most of us, if not all of us. It's just not me. That obviously I'm the person running for the position, but if your family doesn't support you, it's pretty tough, very tough. And we usually start to have the conversation, Garrett, about 3 years in. And
so there's about a year left.
There's a 4-year term. So about 3 years in, we start to have the conversation, and it's for our family, that's what needs to happen.
This has been the Garrett Perry podcast on 88.7 Lyn Hall. Thanks so much,
Garrett. Thank you. Let's do it again.
Sure. Let's maybe let's give it a few months or something.
Well, we should do a fall follow up.
Okay.
Thanks, Garrett.